friends, and welcome to our tutorial for the miniature meal craft. Yes, I had so much fun making this little craft. Truth be told, I was obviously inspired by the most recent holiday, Thanksgiving. But you know what? Making miniatures just really makes me happy just in general. I love them. So we're gonna go ahead and get started here. I have all these little bits. So in your little kit, if you have a kit, or if you're just watching this just for funsies, you're gonna see that we're gonna be using this piece of chipboard, and then we have these tiny little clothespins. I have 4 of them, and these are gonna be the little legs. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna start gluing this all together. So I'm using hot glue because, well, I love hot glue. I like immediate satisfaction, and it bonds to a lot of different stuff. So what I'm doing is I'm putting a tiny little dot of hot glue in each of the 4 corners here. And then I'm going to take my little clothespins and I'm going to do them grabby side down onto those little bits of hot glue. So I'm just taking those, and I'm not opening up the clothespins, I'm just setting them down. So then that way they're going to act as like the little legs of the table. I just thought that that would be so stinking adorable, and it's very, very cute. But we know that the tiny clothespins are all the same height, so they will work perfectly as little legs for our table. And look at that. Look how cute that is. Oh my goodness. Yes, I love it so much. All right. Next thing we're going to do is we are going to be laying down our little tablecloth. This is just like a cute little piece of ribbon. Now, when I originally designed this, I had actually just had the tablecloth out like that, but if you want it to be kind of folded down a little bit, you're gonna need to put hot glue on the sides of your table as well. So because my plate is gonna go, my miniature meal is gonna go in the middle, I'm gonna put a little dot of glue right in the middle here, and then I'm gonna just set my little tablecloth on that. We don't want to be touching right on top of the hot glue with our fingers because obviously it's very hot. So I'm just kind of pressing this around the sides to kind of pull that flat. Again, we're going to be covering up that little dot of glue. So if you're like, oh, I don't like that I can see it, don't worry. It's not going to be, we won't be seeing that forever. But what I am going to do is I'm going to put a tiny little bit of hot glue on the sides of my table. Again, this is just enough just to hold that tablecloth down. I have hardly any glue, hardly any, because I really don't want it to be seen. All right, so it's just going to kind of fold over the sides and do the same thing on the other side. I love making miniatures because I love making things from things we have just laying around. Chances are, if you love miniatures and you are looking around your house, there are probably things around your house you can make miniatures out of that you haven't really thought about. So I thought it would be really fun to show you how to make miniatures using stuff that you probably have laying around anyway. So we're going to be using things like toothpicks and eyelets and things like that. All right, so I have a little bit of glue on either side now. All right, and I'm just kind of locking that in place. Okay, now at least our tablecloth is kind of going off of the sides of the table rather than just laying right on top. All right, and it's not perfect, but that's okay. It doesn't need to be perfect. All right, next thing we're gonna do is I'm gonna have this piece of white paper here. I'm gonna use my circle punch. I gotta go grab it because I forgot it over here. This is me walking all the way across the store. So I have my circle punch here, and I'm just going to be popping out a little white plate. And I know it's kind of hard to see where you guys are up there, but I'm going to use a black pen, and I'm just using my favorite, it's called a Fudenosuke brush pen. I'm going to lay this on here just so you can see what I'm doing here. I just need to make like little like plate looking marks here, so I'm just going to kind of draw like some kind of rough little marks there to kind of make it look like the edge of a plate. Again, it's not like perfect, but it doesn't need to be perfect. We're going to be putting food on it anyway, so it doesn't really matter if it's perfect. I'm going to put a little bit of hot glue on the bottom of that, and I'm just going to lay that in place. All right, so there we have our cute little plate. And then also I have this piece of vellum, this kind of foggy vellum. I'm going to fold that kind of badly in half because I want it to look like someone took their napkin and kind of like tucked it under their plate. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. Also, we have this tiny little piece of silver paper, and this is where we're going to be drawing our silverware. Now, if you want to do like a fork and a knife and a spoon, you have enough space to do so. I am actually just going to do a fork and a knife, and I'm not even going to make this like super complicated. I'm just going to make it as easy as possible for myself to make it look kind of like a knife and kind of like a fork. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect, and honestly, it's probably better if it's not perfect. If it's taking you more than a minute to draw your fork and knife, you're taking too long. It should only take just a second. Well, maybe not literally a second. It should just take you like maybe 5 to 10 seconds to draw your little fork and knife. And you don't need to cut them out like really particularly, just because that can be kind of tedious and kind of take a while. So I'm just kind of loosely cutting them out, just so you get the idea. And then I'm going to be using I guess I'm going to use hot glue here. You can use a little bit of white glue if you happen to have it. I'm going to use hot glue to very carefully glue my knife and my fork to my little napkin. Oh, I'm getting very, very fine, tiny little gluing here. I would probably most recommend white glue, so if you have like Nuvo glue or PVA, that would probably be best, but of course if you don't have it, hot glue will work just fine. And I am actually going to glue my napkin in place just because I don't want it to go flying. And then what if you're trying to eat your meal and you can't find your silverware? That's a pretty important part. All right, so there we have our little knife and our little fork and our little plate. Oh my gosh, it's already so cute. I love it, I love it, I love it. Okay, so next thing we're going to do here is I'm going to show you how to make the turkey leg. So so to make the turkey leg, what we're first going to do is we're going to have our two little pieces of lightweight paper here, and we're going to crinkle them up really good. Really, really, really nice and crinkly, and then we're going to uncrinkle both pieces, right? So you're going to crinkle it up really good, and then you're going to uncrinkle it. All right, then we're going to take hot glue, of course, and we're going to put it in the middle of one of the crinkling pieces, and we're going to take our toothpick and kind of press it. We're not pressing it through, we're just kind of putting it on there, and we're kind of crinkling this paper to kind of make like a little bulb, I guess, on one end. And it doesn't need to be perfect, and trust me, it won't be perfect. And then we're going to do the same thing again with the other piece of crinkled paper, and then we're going to wrap that around this as well. All right, and we're going to get it all nice crunched down, and you might need to use a little bit of hot glue to right on like the little ends that are kind of closest to the bone of our turkey leg. So press that down, get it nice and secure. All right, there we are. And then once you have your little turkey leg created, whoops, I need just a touch more glue there. Don't want to use too much because you don't want to burn yourself, but you also need enough to make it happen. And then we're going to take the kind of part of the turkey leg here. Whoops, I just realized I didn't put enough glue on that. Hopefully that didn't happen to you guys too, but there we are, I fixed it. Okay, so then we're going to take the toothpick side here and we're going to break it there, so then that way it looks like that's the bone coming out of our turkey leg. All right, now I did not tell you to add this to your kit, but if you have a brown marker at home or even a little bit of brown watercolors, you can just brush that right across the top there, and it kind of makes it look like the skin of the turkey. It makes it look like a little bit cooked, right? So I thought that was pretty cute and pretty fun, huh? I love that. All right, so this is our turkey leg. It's gonna be hanging off the edge of our plate, so just know that is going to happen there. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna glue our turkey leg in place. So I'm just gonna do a tiny little dot of glue on one side of my plate and stick that down. Perfect. And then we have our little mashed potatoes, which is this little fuzzy ribbon. It actually feels a little bit like cashmere. It is so soft, it is amazing. So we're gonna do a tiny little dot of glue onto the side of our plate here for our mashed potatoes. I'm just gonna take my little fluff here and kind of fluff it up and then kind of press it down so it kind of stays in place there. All right, this is what we have so far. Mashed potatoes and our turkey leg. And mashed potatoes need gravy. So this ribbon here, I have a tiny little piece I'm cutting off. I decided to include this much larger piece of ribbon here because we really only need a tiny piece, but I figured it'd be really hard to keep track of this tiny little piece of ribbon. And I'm gonna put a little bit of either hot glue on it, or if you don't feel comfortable with that, you can do a little bit of hot glue down here on your mashed potatoes themselves, and then you can just press that right in the middle, and that kind of looks like gravy. I mean, from a distance, it looks pretty much like gravy. And then this is actually ball chain that is green ball chain. Like, how perfect is that? It looks just like peas, you guys. I'm just like so tickled that this worked out. I'm gonna do like a little tiny little grouping of hot glue there, and I'm gonna take my little peas and I'm just gonna wrap them in like a little circle there. And I know it's not gonna fit perfectly, so I have, I'm gonna do another little dollop of hot glue in the middle of the peas. So then that way I can kind of wrap this and this will stick on top. Okay, again, I know it's not going to be perfect, but it's a miniature. It's not really meant to be perfect. I'm sorry, I'm gluing down my little napkin here because I realized it was folding up. Okay, so now that we've done that, We have just a couple of things left. All right, so we have our vial here. There's also a little cork in the vial. We're not gonna be using this for this craft, but maybe you get creative and you're like, oh, I know exactly what to do with that. Maybe you need like a different kind of candle, or maybe this will be like salt and pepper. Seasoning. Oh my gosh, that actually could be perfect. Okay, I'm gonna let you figure out what you wanna do with your cork. I'm not gonna use it, but you could probably come up with a fun idea. So for my little vase, the little vial here, I'm gonna just take my little moss, my blue moss, which is actually supposed to be like the water kind of thing, and I'm gonna use my toothpick to actually press the moss into the little vial. If you have like a skewer at home or something else that you think will work better, obviously you're welcome to do that. I'm just using the stuff we have available. So I have my little blue moss, kind of looks like water inside our little vase there. And then I have my little flower, and everyone's flower might be a little bit different, so you never really know what kind of flower you're gonna get. And I'm actually going to, because this is kind of wiry on one end, I'm gonna actually wrap the wire around this little toothpick so that it's like a kind of curly cue, which is kind of cute. So I kind of like the little curly cue. Yay, adorable. And then I'm gonna take my little rose and stick it just in my little vial. So it looks like, you know, it's growing out and it's magical and fancy for your fancy dinner. I'm gonna put a little bit of dollop of hot glue on the bottom of my vial, and that's gonna go just off to the side here, as if we're like having like a fancy meal. And then I have a little bit of white moss I've also decided to add, and I'm gonna put that on the side of my little vial, and that's just gonna be like a little decoration. I mean, it's not like anything fancy, I just needed something else for the table. So on the right side here, we are gonna be adding in our tiny little candles. Now, again, I didn't really tell you to add this to your kit, or I did not include it in your instructions with your kit. But if you can take a yellow marker or yellow watercolors and color the very tips of your toothpick yellow. This is not a very dark yellow. Maybe I'll go a different. No, you know what? I'm just gonna roll with it. So yellow on the tips of your little toothpick there, and then I'm going to break it almost in half, but not quite. So that way I have one that's a little bit smaller and one that's a little bit larger. And then I have my tiny little eyelets, which are going to be little candle holders. So I'm going to do a tiny little dot of glue. I'm going to put my eyelet down right on top of it, and then put my candlestick, so to speak, right in it, just like that. So cute. And I'm going to do the same thing right here next to it. Again, a little eyelet and a tiny little toothpick for the little candle. And there we have it, my friends, our miniature meal. Look how cute this is. Oh my gosh, I love it. I love it so much. It's so adorable. Ah! All right, I hope you enjoy your delicious miniature meal. And I hope you had lots of fun making tiny little meal with me. I had a great time. All right, enjoy, my friends. We'll see you guys soon. Bye-bye.